I tell you, we have the president of Texas Tech on yesterday. We have the mayor on today. I'm guessing we get the governor on Monday.
There you go. There you go. Good morning, guys.
Morning. How's it going?
Hey, glad you can make it in.
I'm doing great. Sorry I'm a minute or two late. My wife's out of town, and I had to take care of the dog this morning.
Ah.
So, if you want to know the truth.
You got to do what you got to do, man. No doubt about that.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, we were just talking about the James Comey book.
I heard you.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I heard you.
This is what the media is going to be harping on now for gosh knows how long. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Donald Trump, are we?
If you choose to, that's your prerogative. We can.
I'll tell you what. Why don't we go ahead and take the break, and that way we have a little more time on the other side. But we
Good
had
point.
a council meeting last night.
Yeah, we did.
And we can talk about what happened during that council meeting.
That'd be great.
And good morning, everyone. 7:20 a.m. as we move along here on KFYO Mornings. Dave King and Matt Martin. And the mayor, Mayor Dan Pope, with us. Good morning, Mayor Pope.
Good morning, Dave.
Well, yesterday, of course, being a city council meeting, were you up late last night?
We had a relative break last night. We only were there till 8:30 or so.
Oh, geez.
After burning the midnight oil the last couple, but we had a long day. We started at 2, so it was we got our time in yesterday.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, a whole lot to talk about. Annexing is one thing. Is that the hottest topic that's going on with the council right now?
Well, it's certainly the most difficult policy decision. Annexation. We're working on. I guess what you'd say the final set of recommendations that we had an annexation and growth committee that started meeting. I think in 2014. Previous council appointed. And they made a number of recommendations, and this is the last of those recommendations. There are 3 annexations on the west and north side of town, and they're I think they're difficult policy decisions because in the short run, there's not really a winner. I mean, long term, it's good policy for the city as we grow. I was talking to Mayor McDougal this week, and he was talking about the annexations they did in '99, and they did a bunch of annexations. You guys probably recall that, and we look back on those and we think, wow, those were good decisions, but they were difficult then. These are difficult now. You're balancing the needs of the city long term versus homeowners, business owners who are in the county today, and they've made their investments and in those homes or businesses, and you're trying to best you can balance the needs of both, and
it can be a big upfront cost for the city as well.
It can be. It's it's an investment for us. We have by state law over we have to lay out our plan. We have to lay out the service plan when you do your annexation, and you have a certain amount of time to do that. But you're right. We talked last night about one of the big implications of something like this is fire service plan and how you deliver fire service, and then you talk about long term about how you would provide water. You don't require someone that's on a well to connect to city water, but over time that city water is going to be where they could, tap into it. So, anyway, we've had the 2 public hearings. Last night we had first readings on this. We amended all 3 of these annexations. All 3 of them were amended last night. Several of them were amended as many as 3 times. So, and one of them 2 of them we asked for a little bit more work on between now and our meeting on the 26th. So. We continue to work on that. I think these are the last of the annexation committee's recommendations. And in my way of thinking, I've said this publicly a couple times, but I don't see us doing any more, non-petition. So the involuntary annexations, I don't see any more of these in our future in the foreseeable future, 5 to 10 years. I think the other type of annexation we do is a petition annexation. That's Dave buys a piece of land, he wants to develop it, it's connected to the city, but we would have to expand to that. He's willing to help pay for his portion of the water and sewer as we would add it to that area. He wants to build homes there, a business park, whatever. That's a much different kind of annexation where the owner comes to us.
That's a friendly one.
That's much more friendly, yes.
Yeah.
And So that's where we are in annexation.
So with the involuntary annexations, when you do that, does it create like puzzle pieces and then you have to fill them in later involuntarily?
We're trying, so it's a good question because 2 years ago there were a number of puzzle pieces. There were holes, donut. I think they call them donut holes, and they allowed neighbors either to opt in or opt out of the annexation. We've decided that this council's decided that's not something that we're going to offer. They're called 212 agreements, and we've had a lot of issues with a situation where you might have, a neighbor. If you had 3 neighbors on a street, you might have the one in the middle that opted out and the ones on each side that opted in, and there's all kinds of issues with how do you do street maintenance, how do you provide public safety, the like. We did consider one donut hole last night, one area in the annexation up north Frankfort, where there's a street that's completely developed. It doesn't front on any, it just doesn't have frontage on Frankfort, or even on Ursuline on the north end. It doesn't front that. It would. You could leave it out of the annexation. We had an amendment on that last night. Had some discussion around that. The amendment failed on that. It was I think a 4-3 vote on that one last night. So anyway,
we have a text messenger this morning that's weighing in on the annexation, and he says this is from one of those people who did not petition for annexation. Leave us out of your plans. We don't want to be part of the city. We planned it that way. Yeah. We don't care if some builder decides that he wants to develop one little part of the land we don't want to be annexed. Yeah. So that's a sentiment from a lot of those people out there.
And we've heard that. And I think two things I would mention. One is we're not doing this for a developer to come develop. This is not. There's not a developer behind the scenes on this. This is these suggestions were made actually before our council was even seated. They'd made their recommendations in either late 2015, late 15. The second thing is that as we grow as a country, as a city, as a state, whatever it may be, cities are going to grow. And I can remember my grandfather talking about his forefathers and his grandfather telling him about how they moved and came from Mississippi and how every time they saw a water tower they started they moved further west because they didn't want to be part of a city. And this is not a new discussion. It's not an easy discussion. Yeah. I'm not suggesting that I completely disagree with that texter, but it's we were elected to make Beck's long-term decisions for the city. Yep. And that's what we're trying
Another
to do.
Texter asked, has the mayor heard from any citizens in these areas that want to be annexed?
Yes, I have. Yeah, but the vast majority are not in that situation. But there are citizens in these areas that want to be annexed.
Yeah,
there are.
Well, it brings to mind, is there a need, or I guess maybe the question is, why is there a need to do this now? Why? If I understand what you're saying, is this is for Lubbock's future, and this is for future needs of our city. The land will still be there. Why not annex it more as it's needed?
Well, I give you one good example. I think the interstate north of town. So the city limit is at Regis, I guess. Today on the west side of the interstate, the city limit is at Regis, which is where the Loves is, where you turn to go east to the airport. Had we've had, as you may remember, the shingle dump that was allowed to be set up there 15 or 20 years ago, right against the interstate. In fact, there was a day we had to close the airport because of the fire, one of the fires that started there, the unintended fires that started at that shingle dump. As you may recall, we had 2 fires that burned for days out there.
Mayor, sorry, got to interrupt. Got a hard break coming up. Let's take the break and come back afterwards, and we'll let you finish your thought. Okay?
Please.
Good morning, 7:36, and we're back here on KFYO Mornings. Dave King, Matt Martin on the radio, and Mayor Dan Pope with us this morning.
So finishing
wanna
finishing
finish
the
your thought
idea
there?
about why you get in the future, why do you get ahead of development, I think was sort of your question. And North Interstate's a good example. What happened with the shingle dump out there? We're not trying to we don't want to own the world. I think what we want to do is protect the areas that we think will develop over the next few years or next decade, couple decades. You want to make sure that you protect the front doors to your community. You want to make sure that you have the right kind of development. One of these annexations is in that small area between Lubbock and Wolforth, out on the west side, where there's their city limits, our city limits, and just what's in between. Well, I think the people that have invested out there want to make sure that the kind of development that happens there is as valued to what they've already done. So anyway, that's where we are. That's why we're doing it. It's generally not easy or popular. However, I think in the long run, we'll look back at these efforts like we do today on the efforts we've done in the past on these type of involuntaries and say that was good public policy.
Well, we have another texture, Mayor, that says the mayor mentions previous councils. Is the mayor and council members not permitted to vote no on annexation?
Sure, we're permitted to vote no. We had two council members that voted, I think, against everything last night. We had a 4-3 vote on one. I would say this is far from being a done deal. I'd encourage someone to go, if they'd like, to go watch the video of what we did last night or of our previous meetings also.
So I know that annexation is a big deal, but just moving on, we got a lot of other stuff going on.
We do.
One of the really big things was y'all talked about the possibility when y'all move into the Omni building or the Citizens Tower that possibly South Plains College could take over the current City Hall.
Right. So we signed we approved a memorandum of understanding last night between the city and between South Plains College and between LEDA, sort of a three-way agreement to work on a deal to bring a academic center, so an academic campus, so to speak, of South Plains College to downtown to be housed in the existing City Hall. We have a year to work this thing out. We've got the framework for a deal. South Plains College would have to buy they have to be, they have to
Sounds like a pretty good fit.
I think it's a great fit. I mean, here's why I think it's a good fit. First of all, we're the largest city in the state that doesn't have a community college in their downtown. I mean, you think about it. Amarillo's got one, Abilene's got one, Cisco's got one in Abilene. You've got Midland and Odessa have one. You've got, certainly Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin. For many of our citizens, not just our recent high school graduates, because South Plains College serves a lot of our citizens. For many of them, getting to recenter or to Levelland is something they can't do. They don't have the means to do that. We put something downtown on public transportation, easy to get to. It helps our folks, whether they're looking for an associate's degree right out of high school, whether they're at a point in their career where they need a different bit of education. I think it helps Texas Tech. Texas Tech, in fact, is very excited. The chancellor was there last night to talk about it. So was the president of South Plains College. I think we had one of our largest private employers, Robert Taylor from United Supermarkets, talk last night about how they need more skilled workers and how they have job openings and how this will help solve our workforce problems. The other thing it does is it adds 2,000. We think at maturity it adds 2,000 people to downtown every day. We think that's a big deal.
Eating.
Yeah, eating, potentially living. It's if you work during the day and you need to take night classes, we don't have any. That's something we really don't have in Lubbock. That's something that this center will provide. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tech teach night classes there, as well as South Plains College.
Actually, we had the president Skuvanek in here, and he actually mentioned that. So.
It's difficult for them to crank a whole building up to do one night class. Right. But if you have a center where they can have a teacher teach it, or South Plains can teach a class for them there.
Yeah, he was talking about having a cooperation with South Plains College, but having Texas Tech professors teaching.
That's right.
Which I didn't quite follow
Well, Texas
If
Tech
it's-
would
if
use
it's-
that building as well is what I got out of it.
Yeah, we're pretty. We think this has a lot of upside. I give a lot of credit to the board of the Economic Development Agency. I tell you what, we didn't talk about much last night, but the foundations. We have reason to believe we're going to get significant private support. I know CH Foundation thinks this is a great idea. So we needed some time to put it all together, but we're pleased. I also the South Plains College Board of Regents. Mike Box is the chair. This is sticking their neck out. I mean, because their tax base is in Hockley and Cochran County. Once the construction is done, this thing cash flows. It'll cash flow. It's a function of how do you amass the money. The capital dollars are the hardest dollars to get. And so, we'll work South Plains College and the Economic Development Agency, private funding. City's not going. We don't have dollars to add to that. That's not our role, but we hope we can get it done.
So from that aspect, Chad sent me a text. He wants to know if South Plains College moves to downtown, would they or the council seek to create a tax district?
No, that's not our intent.
Okay.
No. In fact, if you follow the tax, there were a couple in elections, maybe last November, where there were a couple of those tax districts for community colleges around the state where they tried to extend them. They went down in flames. That's not our intent. That's not. This doesn't need to be that. I don't think the Board of Regents. We've not even talked about it, but I would not be supportive of that.
Yeah. Okay. Time to take a quick break. We'll come back with the mayor in our final segment after this. 7:47 a.m. as we're back here on KFYO Mornings. Dave King, Matt Martin, talking with Mayor Dan Pope this morning about annexation, and boy, our text boards have just lit up, and for the most part, it seems like there's some pretty angry listeners out there regarding annexation. The city needs more tax base because they spend too much money and they try to be like Dallas.
Well, it's not
and on it goes.
This isn't
it
about
goes.
tax base. I mean, the North Interstate piece we're looking at, which is the original look at it, which was a lot of land, is going to be much smaller than that eventually. It only generates $37,000 a year in tax revenue. It's not. This is not a tax revenue thing. It's. I wish it. I wish it was easy enough to point that it was a financial decision. It's not. It's more of a long-term growth kind of policy decision. But it is. Everybody's has the right to their opinion, but that's the way I look at it.
So and another one is as we moved to the country because we wanted to live in the country. So
I completely agree. I come from people who we talked about it a while ago. I mean, if you can see a water tower, you may be too close. I mean, my people, I can chart it. They moved from Mississippi, and they moved every time they could see development. They kept moving west, and I can't do anything to slow down the growth of our community. We're growing about 1.5% or 2% a year. It's very. I think it's very sustainable.
I think we're growing more than that.
It's we're not too hot. We're not too cold. It's very good growth, but it's the way we're not going to grow up. We're going to grow out. That's how West Texans grow. It's mainly how Texas has grown, and so
we're not New York City.
No, and we're faced with these kind of decisions.
Endless land.
It's relatively inexpensive too.
Yeah.
I hate to move away, but we just have other things to talk about. There was some type of bicycle ride sharing program.
Yeah.
And could you talk a little bit about that? What exactly are we looking at?
Well, we really were getting a briefing. If you follow what's going on around the state, these bike share kind of agreements or deals have sort of blown up in the face of a lot of the communities. Dallas is sort of the poster child for that.
I know Austin did that a long time when I was there 5-6 years ago, and they had a lot of problems with it. So
they came really to the states in about 2010s where you first started seeing them. It's a bit like Uber for bikes. It's you don't own the bike, you just walk up to the bike and with an app you unlock it and ride it for an hour and leave it in a spot where someone else can use it. Texas Tech's looking at a program right now. We're briefed on what they're looking at and potentially how we might use that as a way to enter this.
So is there a fee?
There would be for the user. It would be Just use it.
You'd pay a fee for the app, which entitles you to unlock the bike.
I think the app's free, and then you can buy the bike. You can use it for an hour. You could rent it for. You can use it for a semester. You could have an unlimited usage. It's just it's a cool concept. It's just you need to avoid the unintended consequences that go along with it. I've talked to a couple of these companies just to try to understand sort of these where they've had success in town and gown city, college towns, and how they've made it work. But we didn't consider anything last night. We know that Tech's working on an RFP. What we like about this is Tech's going to go to one vendor. We think that makes sense. The places that have done this well seem to have picked one vendor. And that Tech will have some pretty tight requirements. For instance, if someone was riding a bike and they just left it in Matt's front yard, the vendor has 2 hours. They know where these things are,
right? And
they'll know where they're supposed to be. There's the geofencing kind. They'll know what area they're supposed to be in. If they're out of that area, they have 2 hours to get out and get it picked up and get it back into one of their areas.
Well, you just answered.
That's right. They'll have to have people.
You've just answered a question for me. I think it was Waco. I'm not sure. Couple of weeks ago, and we were driving down the street, and everywhere there was bikes, and you could tell they were all the same bike, and it appeared that they were kind of locked in, and I thought, how in the world does this work? That makes a lot of sense.
Well, there's two general ways. There's dockless. There's a docked program where you have to check them in and out of where they park in a bike rack kind of thing. And then that's how they came to the country. Most of them now are dockless, which means you don't have to drop them at a docked place. Although, anyway, it's pay attention to it. College Station is having a little bit of an issue right now with theirs. We want to avoid having problems with it, but we know it's coming, so we're trying to get ahead of it.
Very quickly, an issue that is coming up. It was announced that property values in Lubbock has increased last year over 7%. This is going to be a lot of extra money to the city, all the taxing entities in Lubbock. Is there any thought to reducing the rate to get this thing more in line, where citizens don't see their property values increase and their taxes increase too much?
Sure. Yeah, I think the answer is yes. I mean, I think first of all, let's get through the appraisal process. I mean, I'm one that got a 20% increase.
Wow.
I've been in my home 20 years. To my knowledge, there's not been any significant sales around me. I'm going to go talk to them. I'll ask them. I want to understand why. I mean, I think that's the first thing our citizens should do is to go through that process. You don't just take this thing sitting down. If you go to their website, you look for. You look for your property value of your neighbors. You want to look at what's happened. I mean, mine's gone up in 5 years. It's gone up 39%. Well, maybe that's okay, but it went up 20% in one of those in this year. I mean, so there are a lot of us that have that challenge.
Well,
it's
7% seems to be an awful lot. That's more than twice, maybe 3 times what we hope that it normally increases, is it not?
That's a lot of growth. I mean, I think
wow.
I mean, I think what did Elcat say last week that the average home went up from 139 to 149? It'd be about the 7% you're talking about.
7.1%, 7.14, I think. Okay, Mayor, we've got to take a quick break, and we'll be back with just a couple of minutes to close out. We'll be back right after this. Okay, we're back here with just a minute or so left with Lubbock Mayor Dan Pope.
Yeah, it's great to be with you guys. Just a final thing this morning. We want to encourage people to vote. We've got city and school district elections coming up, and in our case, the proposition around the auditorium and Coliseum. Early voting starts on Monday the 23rd, so a week from Monday. The election day itself is Saturday, May the 5th, but please vote. We had 13% of the registered voters in Lubbock County vote in the March primaries. We're better than that.
Yeah.
I mean, we need more than 13 people being part of the decision-making process. That's my message is vote. I'd love to talk. I'll come back if you want to talk about Auditorium and Coliseum. I know you guys have been talking about it, but please vote. That's the get out and be part of the process.
Well, is that does that mean that maybe most of the citizens are pretty well content with the way things are going? That they don't feel a need to go out and vote?
I don't know, Dave. you would know better than I would.
I don't know, but no, you're right. It is it's incumbent on us as citizens to go out and vote, and we certainly need to do that. So what have we got, Connor? I missed your time signal there. Okay, about 7:59, moving up on 8 o'clock, Mayor. We're always glad to have you, and always, on our Friday visits with you or with someone from the council.
Hey, Mayor's Marathon, a week from Sunday. So so we had an announcement today. We got a big ultra marathoner coming in, but come out and watch it. It's going to be around the loop. Come watch it and
After this,
have a little fun.
Be back.